good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain also.
Indeed. It's a Thursday morning. I remember somewhere I was seeing the grading of days. I mean, how people love days or their best days. Usually Friday is the first one. Thank God it's Friday. That's why we say thank God it's Friday.
Oh, okay.
And then next up on the list is Saturday. Then I think Thursday comes next. That's what people say. It's almost Friday. So good morning and welcome. I hope you look forward to Thursday as much as I do. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
So what, can we say, thank God it's almost Friday, right? Well, welcome to Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. 11 days of Christmas, actually, Maokwe. So a lot to be thankful for today. I'm Kaidoki Kilu.
Well, that also, of course, if we are grading days, do we also grade dates of the month? Will the 25th day of the month be better than the 14th, which is today? Amaya Makide, good morning and welcome.
Well, who knows? Maybe it may depend on how people see it or what line of work they're in. Because some people just go ahead and, act like every day is Friday or almost Friday. But it is what it is. And over here, some data staring us in the face as we just take you through some of the dailies here today. Taking a look at the Vanguard newspaper, for instance, where you get to see 4 Nigerians hit 104 million ascribed to the World Bank. And so we always talk about how all of those policies that government has put in place, all they're putting in place, how do they measure the kind of results they're getting? Do they weigh it against what figures or what data? Maybe this might be one of them. So this ascribed to the World Bank, and if you look at some of the writers now, asks NNPC to publish accounts, revenue flow, NNPC earnings under scrutiny, Edun, eyes Nigerians holding large forex in domiciliary accounts, Industry Minister counters World Bank on power subsidy. Okay, so this, you get to see going back and forth. Of course, I mean, World Bank can give their, look, maybe we should just go back and take a look at some of these figures against our own data. And when I say ours, I'm talking about the states now, because a lot happens in states. So they should also be coming up with, discussing their data, going back and forth with their professionals or private sector in those states to see what are we doing, how do I measure my policies beyond all of those electioneering jargon and campaign, what are the figures that stare us in the face if they really mean it. So that's why that should be the case. But also, yesterday, remember we had talked about the price of tickets, aviation tickets. There's something here that may, you never know. Tinubu sacks FAN, NAMA, NSIB, NIMET DGs. Suspends,
explaining there.
Suspends NCAA DG, removes NCAT rector. So, will we be going ahead of ourselves to think that this might just get some sort of, if not direct, indirect impact on what happens to those ticket prices, how they take off and stay mid-air, not ever landing. So, who knows? Mr. Keyamo has said previously at the time that, look, you all have to behave. I won't lose my job because of you. But now, maybe this might be the wake-up call that ministry needs to ensure that everything is taken not as business as usual, business unusual. And by the way, he did say that from next year, 2024, airlines will begin to pay compensation to passengers for delayed flights or cancelled. I think cancelled.
So cancelled flights, yes.
All right. So that's Vanguard today.
Well, I'm looking at The Guardian here, and the story is very similar to what you see on the front page of the Vanguard, even though, I think what's very instructive on the front page of the Vanguard is that they're talking about poor Nigerians in general. This is non-Nigerians living in multidimensional poverty. That's another category of people. And it will include even people whom you thought were average. You'll be surprised that, there are aspects of your lives that are not poor. I think generally that measures like quality of life that, majority of Nigerians have. But when you talk about poverty in its very real sense, that's what the Vanguard is referring to. And it looks like the Guardian is also following on that particular story, because you're looking at national statistics. Population outgrows economy amid rising dependence, misery. That's the lead story right there. The Guardian has been focusing a lot on the economy of late, and I hope that somebody's paying attention to the trajectory of the stories that they have been bringing to the very fore. They've talked about how income, or will I say cost of living, has outgrown real income. These are real issues for everyday Nigerians, real issues for even people you think are doing okay. You'll be surprised just what exactly is happening underneath all of that, smooth sailing you're seeing on the very top. So somebody needs to be paying attention to what precisely is happening. And that's what they're looking at here again. Population outgrows economy amid rising dependence, misery. Nigeria, in numbers, they have this infographic for you. 2012 to 2022, we recorded a 30% growth in 10 years. And there is a projection that will be from 216.78 million in 2022 to about 400 million Nigerians in 2050. The question is, how big are we baking our cake? Every time we present a budget, we look at the size of the budget, and people just look at the size of the numbers. But what they're not looking at is the size of the numbers relative to how many Nigerians there are. And there have been questions as to how it is that we're going to bring more money into that basket, not how everybody's going to take from the little that there is. That's why there's a lot of desperation, it would seem. So right there on the front page, you have the story. You also have a number of other stories, some from the subnationals as well. Police neutralize 13 kidnappers, rescue 263 victims in Katsina. Then you also see there, Tinubu sacks heads of aviation agencies. FEC approves 6.32 billion naira contracts. Is right there for you. And just in case you missed what happened in Rivers yesterday, they also have this. Fubara bears fangs, demolishes assembly complex, presents 2024 budget to 4 lawmakers. Yes, 4 lawmakers. That's what you find right there. Presents 2024 budget. So while there was a lot of focus and attention as to what was happening at the assembly complex, it's been pulled down, and there were reactions back and forth. Another activity was happening right there at the government house, where the budget for the people of Rivers State was being presented to 4 lawmakers. Well, he's not the only one presenting a budget. Sanwo-Olu presents 2.2 trillion naira 2024 budget to Assembly. Is right there. Lagos is also doing so. And there was a bank robbery yesterday. 3 feared dead in Ekiti bank robbery. No going back on concession of international airports. Keyamo insists. So just in case you thought you've had it all for aviation, no, you haven't. There's more for you on the front page of The Guardian. Let's leave it there for the paper.
Well, take a look at Business Day. I think we need to drive this message home. I think that's what Business Day, as well as other papers, are doing this morning. Take a look at how Business Day leads. APC losing war against poverty. So that's another angle to the story entirely. And you understand why the APC has been in power for 8+ years now. The writers tell more. 14 million Nigerians became poor in 2023. Those figures are coming from the World Bank. But take a look at the minister. Says, we're on track to stabilize the economy, says Edum.
It's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. On the one hand, the federal government at the time said we have 133 multi-dimensionally poor Nigerians, and of course Mokwe referenced that earlier. But now the World Bank is saying we have 4 million poor Nigerians. You may want to get the paper to get the context of that story.
And you know, this is really sad because we had a former president, Buhari, whom a lot of people said was pro-poor, was socialist, had a lot of interventions to target the poor and all of that. But apparently more people plunged into poverty, and we need to keep saying this because I think for a lot of people, they've not really come to terms with that. And I'm talking about people in government and even people outside who still live as though, there's a lot of money in the bank and all of that. And we've seen series of examples.
You know, they challenge, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get some answers to that today. The challenge has always been that of collaboration between federal and state agencies of government, state governments. The former president said the only way we can get Nigerians out of the poverty bag is if we have collaboration with states. That data from the NBS talking about the poverty figures said more than half of the population of Nigeria who are multidimensionally poor are in the north. We have northern governors, we have southern governors. So what are the collaborations that were supposed to happen that did not happen? Especially now that this president is saying that we have to collaborate with state governments for the health sector to thrive.
Some will say, do you need collaboration to budget right, not to overspend, not to pad the budget? But clearly, we need a 360 approach to this.
Don't forget that the budget is a law, and it is people that will execute it.
Exactly. But that is the story for Business Day. APC losing war against poverty. There are a couple of more stories, but I think that is heavy enough to digest. It might take some time digesting, but let's leave it there for Business Day.
Well, perhaps something equally significant is what you have on the front page of the Nigerian Observer today. It's a story that's been on for decades, well, depending on who is looking. FG takes universities, polytechnics, others off IP's platform. Who won?
It reminds me of what comrades or labor people say. They say, "Aluta continua, victoria assata." So the struggle continues, victory is certain. So is this a victory as a result of the struggle we've been seeing over the years?
Or one of the victories?
Or one of the victories. Or this is this is a setup, because a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, you need to be careful because the universities will be carrying more loads now. But that's where we are with that.
But even at that, I mean, if the universities are making their money through, remuneration, that the students are not going to be bringing as a result of the student loans, which is, I don't know, is that active yet anyway?
No, so, not yet.
If they begin to pay all of that money into universities, automatically universities now have to begin to fend for themselves, right?
And then still remit 40% or what? Or still, what is that whole conversation? Don't forget, is it going to now be UTAS? I know the polytechnics say they have their own too. So will it be UTAS or another?
Let's now see how ASU will will hold the university systems accountable. And what now will be the role of the NUC? That's the Nigerian Observer this morning.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at, since you've taken Vanguard newspaper. So, Tribune, the lead story on the front page of Nigerian Tribune says, Rivers, legal issues arise as government demolishes assembly complex. So there are quite a number of items here. Sitting venue, quorum on front burner as 4 members witness Fubara deliver budget proposal in government house, Nigerian Tribune. And then Speaker declares seats of 27 lawmakers vacant. PDP writes INEC, demands fresh elections into vacant assembly seats. Why we demolished assembly complex, Rivers government. And so you see all of that there this morning. FEC exempts tertiary institutions from IPs. So this put an end to a lot of those strikes, protestations here and there. So who knows? NLC rejects proposed plan to restructure TCN, says it portends great danger. So what do they suggest then as way forward? Because, I mean, quite a lot of people have spoken about how we need to ensure that the country has a lot more power supply, a lot more. And so yes, matters of economy all over the place. As a matter of fact, the CBN did say yesterday that they're blaming scarcity of banknotes on hoarding. Yeah, that's what the CBN said yesterday. So all of those who were saying they were not supplying the banks enough, let the banks, how much they even receive in the first place? But CBN says no, people are hoarding it.
Yeah, it was based on, I think the CBN governor spoke yesterday saying that it was because people, had the initial inkling that there was going to be the deadline for December, so people started hoarding, but that mercifully the Supreme Court has intervened. So all legal notes, all legal tenders are okay to use indefinitely.
What is wrong with people?
So why are we hoarding these notes? Please make it available.
Goodness me.
Please make it available and stop trying to give me some anxiety. That's not Christmas rice, neither is it Christmas chicken. You're holding chicken, I can understand. But money...
I don't get it. Don't invite armed robbers to your house by mistake.
Oh, well.
Careful what you wish for.
I sincerely hope that the reassurance would actually help people, who have hoarded this note spend it. Will that be all for Tribune?
Yeah, that's Tribune.
Well, I don't know what the World Bank is aiming at this morning, but I think that they're putting a light to something we've been hearing for a while. Daily Trust has this one. Stop subsidy payments. Yes, you heard that. Stop subsidy.
Wait, I didn't say, wait a minute, that it's a lie that it's been removed.
Oh, Chamberlain, I'm reading the Daily Trust as we are reading it.
Oh, boy.
Let's read it together. Stop subsidy payment. Increase petrol price to 750 naira per litre. That's according to World Bank. It says World Bank tells federal government wants increase in VAT, taxes for SMEs, advice on fuel price hike insensitive. That's according to dons. I imagine those are university dons. Subsidy removal hasn't brought expected gains in oil revenues. That's according to the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. I want to believe that's what OAGF means. So in this context, because I know AGF is also Attorney General, but we're looking at that. Subsidy removal hasn't brought expected gains in oil revenues. Fuel selling above 700 naira in Northeast. So you find details on page 4 of the paper. But that's the lead story right there. Stop subsidy payment. Increase petrol price to 750 naira.
Suddenly too many questions on that one.
Too many.
Maybe so the body of the story. Did they bother about affordability?
Well, World Bank cannot be saying, because it's the same World Bank that said poor Nigerians hit what now? How many millions?
104.
104 million. You cannot be telling us how many people have now become poor.
And then you say, make more people poor.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So you don't run with the headlines. That's all I can say at the minimum. Don't run with the headlines. Pick up a copy of the paper.
Yeah.
And, read the details, read the context in which these statements were made.
Before you tell them to mind their business, understand what's going on.
Indeed. So page 4 is where you'll find details. Something to cheer ASU excited as federal government exempts varsities, polytechnics, others from IPs. That's also there. Tinubu fires FAN, NCAA, NAMA, NCAT, NIMET, NSIB bosses all at once. And then CBN suspends new requests for intervention loans. That story is on page 18. They also have the big story from Rivers State right there. Fubara presents a budget to 4 lawmakers, demolishes Rivers Assembly. It's a page 10 read for you. We'll leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
Right, so the right top corner of this Nigeria will give you reason why you should get the full story before you run to town. So take a look at this Nigeria. Nigeria to earn over 11 trillion naira from fuel subsidy savings by 2025. That's the World Bank. So that's another angle to it. So if you're taking away subsidy entirely, it means perhaps you'll be getting more revenue, which naturally should be channeled into helping the poor and providing some buffer for them in an ideal situation, that is.
Well, yeah, someone said, okay, so the federal government, I think at some point earlier this year, 1 or 2 months ago, said the federal government had saved something in the region of 1 trillion naira or so from
removal or part removal of subsidy.
Someone said, so where is it?
Good question. That's a question of accountability and transparency. Where is it? Where's the money? But the big story on the front page of this Nigeria is on the rivers. I was going to say brouhaha, but really, I don't want to downplay that. The important issues playing out in River State and how I just wonder what's going on. Criticisms trail demolition of Rivers Assembly Complex. It's an act of treason, brigandage, lawyers, others. Legislators can reconvene, sit anywhere, says Otubanjo. We shouldn't be here in the first place.
Even if legislators can sit anywhere, why do we need the State House of Assembly
in the first place? So we shouldn't rebudget billions of naira to rebuild it when we can just sit anywhere or do it virtually via Zoom. Exactly. Because as we said, and this is not the most buoyant times for us as a nation, and particularly as states, whether you're oil producing or not. There's a couple more stories, but there's one that is quite worrisome for me. And it is that one that says Cameroonian insurgents raise houses in Cross River community. So we literally crossed the border, raised houses. This is cross-border terrorism crime, and it's worrisome. Again, we've talked about how we've had terrorism in the northeast, a lot of them crossing over in the northwest as well. Now we're having it in the south. So this is a very, very big story that I hope that we're paying attention to. Page 20 of this Nigeria.
Well, the question you want to ask about that one, Kaude, is that the first time? Don't we have intelligence making? Anyway. Nigeria News Direct has this one on its front page. It's also another angle to that story from the World Bank. Import restrictions. Nigeria lost over $300 million to tax evasion. That's according to the World Bank. I'm struggling not to convert that in my head.
Your head has done it already. You're just trying to stop it. You've done it, I bet you.
Gosh. Anyway, let me hope that this is part of the jobs that the Oyedele committee has looked into and making recommendations. Recommends reduction of import tariffs to reduce cost of doing business and poverty level. Applauds fiscal reforms. Predicts decline in inflation by H1 2024. But I'm not sure if the next story right under that sub-story is any comfort. High interest rate, non-collateral interventions, others hindering recovery of 4.7 trillion naira debt. That's according to AMCON.
There was a talk about scrapping AMCON or not. I mean, the debt is rising, so what's the point? But hey,
especially when the organizations they took over aren't doing any better. Well, with the Nigerian News Direct this morning, we've come to an end of some of dailies this morning, but the issues are still on the lineup. Do stay with us. We're right back.
This is the River State House of Assembly on Moscow Road. The complex is again the center of attention as it is being outrightly demolished. At about 6:45 a.m. on Thursday, bulldozers said to be deployed to the House of Assembly by the state government approached the complex, bringing it down.
We are not prepared. Okay, don't let me hear something. I'm going to take other people.
The River State government, through the Commissioner for Information, Mr. Joe Johnson, says there is nothing to worry about as the government is only acting on the advice of consultants who warned that the building is no longer safe for habitation.
After the fire incident that took place on the 29th, arising from the visit of His Excellency, I was on that trip. and we got there to assess the extent of damage. But beyond that, His Excellency also commissioned consultants who went into the structure and came up with an advice that it was no longer habitable and not very conducive for business. On the strength of that advice, the government had decided to demolish that structure and also provide a befitting place for members of parliament to transact their business. Well, the rapidity at which we commenced today will tell you that we're prepared to do it. And within record time, I'm sure that place will be fit for legislative business.
Reacting to development,
which of course
the River State APC critical chairman, Tony Okocha, accuses the state governor, Mr. Siminalayi Fubara, of being responsible for the fire that razed the complex in October.
Would 4 constitute 11, which of course ought to be 1/3 of members of the House. In other words, it is an action in illegality, and we will condemn it. We'll keep condemning it. It has proven, the governor has proven us right when we said that he was responsible for the Inferno, the fire issue in Assembly.
Elsewhere in the state, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Tunji Disu, assures residents that there is no cause for alarm as the police is ready to deal with any security breach.
This is a localized incident that happened within this area. It is not something trickling down to other parts of the state. For those willing to come home for Christmas, I beg you to kindly come home and spend nice time here with members of your family. We have increased policemen on the road. All nooks and crannies of the town are properly policed.
Once standing tall, a bastion of the legislative activity here in River State, the River State House of Assembly complex is being torn down. Residents of the city woke up to see bulldozers bringing down this edifice amidst claims of renovation work going on here. But in the midst of all of this, the Commissioner of Police in the state is assuring that this Yuletide, there will not be a breakdown of law and order, even as he calls on politicians in the state to be more circumspect in their actions. From Port Harcourt, River State, Charles, Upper Room, Channels Television News.
Mr. Marlon Anene joins us this morning. He's a legal practitioner. We'll also expect Mabonye to also join in. But good morning. Thank you for coming on today on the program. There's certainly several questions in the minds of so many people who are watching. From the perspective of law, governance, they just seem to understand anymore what's going on with this. But as a lawyer, looking at all of these things, particularly or perhaps in context of the legal issues too that are played out there, what really strikes you?
Yeah, good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, Mark. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Good morning, Nigerians. Yeah, as a Nigerian and as a lawyer, it bleeds my heart what is going on in River State. The People's Assembly was denigrated and desecrated. First of all, the River State House of Assembly is a hallowed chamber. It's a protected place. It's a sacred place. Nobody can go in there and effect any arrest because of the tenets of the democracy. Now, if you look at what happened 29th of October 2023, there was arson. People went there and burnt down the People's Assembly complex. In traditional Igbo society, there is what we call Otobo. There is what we call village square, where people gather to take decisions affecting the daily lives of the people. If you go there and denigrate that place, the society will deal with you because that is a sacred place. Now, fast forward to what is happening now. Only a few days ago, the governor obtained an order stating that the building has failed integrity tests, and that was an ex parte order. Then, less than 24 hours later, the building was brought down. Simply, it bleeds my heart that the representatives of the people who are elected to represent the good people of River State, the Assembly complex, if you read the Legislative Powers and Privileges Act, that place cannot be desecrated by anybody.
So Who do we fault now? The state government or the judiciary that gave the order?
No. What the order given by judiciary is an interim order. It's not a final judgment of the court. But the state government has executed an interim order of the court without allowing persons who are aggrieved by that interim order to approach the same court for the same judgment, for the same ruling to be vacated or appeal against it. That was not happen. Now, if you look at what happened in January 6th in America, then a group of Americans mobilized themselves and went to Capitol Hill and desecrated Capitol Hill. Americans said no. That is where we copied our democracy from. Today, most persons have been standing trial. Most persons have been arrested. Even Donald Trump himself, former president of America, he's standing trial. Only a few days ago, Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, approached the Supreme Court with view to determining certain issues for determination, whether President Trump can be tried for offenses he committed in office, vis-a-vis that desecration of the Capitol Hill in January 6, 2020. Now, if you look at what's happening in River State, there was arson. Let's look at it from legal issue first. There was arson. Who was arrested? Nobody, as we speak today, nobody is arrested. Nobody is standing trial. Even the little evidence being picked up by police has been destroyed by that reason of demolition that happened yesterday. Now, if that place is demolished, if you arrest anybody to say you castrated the arson that took place in River State Assembly, where is the evidence? The rest has been destroyed. And that was why we were saying there are more to it than ordinary meets the eye. The reason given by the governor is that he failed integrity test. If he fails integrity test, what happened in January 6th in America? The place was cordoned off. That place was not demolished.
So does it mean that the police themselves, who ought to be investigating this matter, should probably have been there to either make a statement or make their presence felt and ask questions as to whether or not that place should be demolished?
No. You see, it's not about making a statement. As long as that incident happened, that arson happened, the police and other sister security agencies swing into action. They don't need to make a statement. We're tired of statement.
No.
Cordon off the
Making
place
a statement,
first.
I mean, not just putting paper statements. I mean, your
No,
presence
Nigerians are used to, we're on top of the situation, we're working.
No, that's not what I mean. Because
Okay.
if they're present, if they were there, they could have stopped the demolition.
No, it's not about being there. The moment that arson took place, it is the duty of the security agents to cordon off the place first, so that nobody goes in, nobody comes out, so that they can get the footprint, so that they look at the video, CCTV camera, so that they can even get the handprints of those involved. That did not happen. So the police can be there, and once there is a court order, if that place was cordoned off, probably the judge that gave that order wouldn't have given that order, because there's an ongoing investigation as to who are involved in that arson. Now, if you fast forward it to what happened also yesterday, before the house was demolished, the State House of Assembly, allegedly led by the Speaker loyal to the governor, sat and claimed that 27 lawmakers that defected from PDP to APC have been expelled and their seats declared vacant. Now, that is not the tenets of Section 109, Subsection 1G of 1999 Constitution as amended. The section provides that if there is a defection from Party A to Party B, and that defection has pitched the other person into another party, if there is no defection, if there is no division in that, if there is no division in the party that brought the member to power, then you can declare his seat vacant.
But here they claim that there's, in fact, for instance, several articles, several lawyers, including Mr. Fernando, who says self-inflicted division cannot be tantamount to the kind of division that the law was making reference to. And as such, the members cannot say that there was indeed division which warranted their moving to another party. And so on the basis of that, it might have been right to declare
what Leonard was his personal opinion. That does not represent the judgment of the court. Now, the issue as to whether there is a division in a political party is not a question of law. It's a question of fact. The 27 lawmakers stated that there was a division in their party. They are the members of that party. They know what's going on in the party. And if I may ask, why did PDP allow the former secretary or the incumbent secretary to go and contest governorship election in Imo State without resignation? They should tell Nigerians what was his status. Did he actually resign? If he has resigned, was that resignation accepted? If the resignation was accepted, would he have gone back to the PDP after he lost the election to say, I'm now the secretary? The 27 lawmakers are saying that given this resignation or the uncertainty as to the status of the secretary, they cannot reach their national secretariat. They don't know who is the national secretary, who is the secretary at the national secretariat. And if you believe in me, since this incident happened, that's the imbroglio between the governor of Rivers State and Rivers State House of Assembly. The PDP has not issued a statement. They only issued a statement when these people defected. So what the party would have done is to weigh in the crisis. They didn't do it, and that is why these people are maintaining. There's a division. So what Fanada was saying is that the moment you defect, you lose your seat. It's not true.
But
if
the
you read constitutional provision very well, he said there must be a division. And that division is a question of facts, not law. And how does it happen? There is no, the judgment is cited, it's not judgment in rem. There's no judgment in rem because there is no two cases that are the same. The court will take decision based on the facts presented before it. Only a few months ago, a serving senator defected. What was his reason? He said irreconcilable differences between him and the members of his party. Now, if you take it to what this person saying, and he was allowed to defect. There was no quotation. Nobody is questioning. Even his political party are not questioning it. Now, these people are now citing division. Now, what is to be done is not to listen to what Fanada was saying. It's for people to approach the court. That section is not activated automatically because the procedure is that somebody needs to go to court for interpretation. Whether the statement issued by 27 lawmakers amounts to division in the party or not, that's a question to be determined by court. And even the order being paraded by the led faction, the order did not say that the 27 members have lost their seat. The order said he is now recognized as the speaker, so to speak. If he's a speaker, then 27 lawmakers are also, as we speak, the members of Rivers State House of Assembly. Then the question you ask yourself is this. If you read Section 96 or Section 1 of 1999 Constitution, it says the quorum of State House of Assembly shall be one-third of all the members. All the members. And Rivers State House of Assembly has 32 members. If you have 32 members, meaning that you have at least 12 members, because he didn't reckon with the presiding officer. Now, if you need at least 12 members for the House to carry on the business of the day. And subsection 2 says, if the House could not form a quorum, then the necessary implication is that the House adjourns. That did not happen. Now, the House could not form a quorum, and the governor allegedly presented 2024 appropriation bill before the House.
But based on the judgments, if the members say, look, we got a judgment from court, and the court says they recognize us as the members, and so this other group are not recognized by law, what are they supposed to have done? Just wait until they can get...
You are reading their intention into the ruling of the court. The ruling of the court is that Dixon here is the speaker. Nobody now, the people, the other 27, if they so feel aggrieved, they can still appeal against that ruling or approach the same court for that order to be vacated.
I thought the law also said that it prevented those other members from accessing or having their meetings in the chamber.
But that does not mean that they are no longer the members of Rivers State House of Assembly. There should be explicit order to that effect. Now, those other members have not lost their seat, unless the court now said, having defected from PDP to APC, and the reasons you cited could not avail you of that defection, you hereby lose your seat. It's on that ground that the speaker will now say, in view of the judgment before me against the 27 lawmakers that defected, their seats have been declared vacant. That section did not automatically empower the speaker to declare any seat vacant unless the issue, the facts as to the issue of defection is determined by court. Now, if you look at what the special prosecutor is doing in America, that's Jack Smith, he did not just take President Trump to court. He first of all approached the Supreme Court, and that is the procedure for a determination whether Trump can be prosecuted for offense he committed in office. Because As we speak, even you read Section 308 of 1999 Constitution as amended, once you're a former president or former governor, or former deputy governor, or former vice president, you have lost your immunity. But then, because they are a nation of laws, the special prosecutor approached the Supreme Court for determination as to whether Trump can be prosecuted. Now, what we expected Dixon Hayes led faction is to approach the court to say these 27 lawmakers cited the division in their party because the secretary, there is issue with their secretary and their secretariats can no longer function. These reasons being adduced by these 27 lawmakers, can it avail them to defect from PDP to APC? If the courts agree with them, so be it. If the court refuses to agree with them, so be it. But as you speak, gaining access to the presence of the River State House of Assembly, it does not amount to stating that those members are no longer members of the River State House of Assembly. What the mistake people are making here is that what happened in Edo State a few years ago.
Just before we get to what happened in Edo State, I want to go back to the very first issue because it would look like so far so good. You've been preempting the questions. You say, well, the question you ask yourself is, and then you go on ahead to answer the question. But let's go back to the very first issue, which is the assembly now, which has been demolished. You say that it ought not to have been demolished, that investigations could still be ongoing, that the police ought to have cordoned off the place, and that would have prevented any of such acts. But everybody saw on TV, on television, the fires that happened within the complex of the River State House of Assembly and how big an inferno it was. Shortly after, we saw the governor try to go and inspect the situation, the aftermath of the inferno. And people are saying, how long, for how long, assuming the police or the fire service or anybody else who was involved in an investigation. This fire happened since October. By now, shouldn't they have a very clear idea or should have picked out whatever it was they wanted to pick out from the place to be able to know, if they could be able, they'll be able to get evidence as to the people who did such a fire or committed the arson, as the case were. It hasn't enough time elapsed for that investigation to take place.
No. Even if the River State government could have as well instituted judicial panel of inquiry, independent of what police is doing, because that's a hallowed chamber. It's a protected place by law. That place, what one comes first? Is it the demolition or that investigation? As we speak, the River State government has not told the world what led to the fire incident. Who are involved? The fire cannot just come and ignite in a particular place. If it's electrical fault, if it is persons believed to be hoodlums, who are those behind it? What is the extent of damage? Then that should come first before you now go into demolition. Demolition will come as per integrity test, ranging from investigation. Integrity, you cannot just do integrity tests without an investigation.
Yeah, but we do not know that an investigation is not currently ongoing.
No, if investigation is currently ongoing, we demand to know because that place is a protected place. The River State House of Assembly is a protected place by law.
By who? Protected by who?
No, by law.
Who upholds the law? Isn't it the chief security officer? I recall that when the governor, went to the place and he was saying, look, I am the chief security officer of the state, yes, and I'll be the one to determine the new place that members will be able to sit. That was what he said when he went to go and do the inspection. So protected by who? Is it not the chief security officer of the state?
You see, we are mixing issues. There was arson. That place is a hallowed chamber. If that place got burnt by fire or by any incident, then, as the chief security officer, it behoves on the governor to conduct inquiry, to conduct independent investigation. We call it judicial panel of inquiry, to look into what happened. Now, is the report from that judicial panel of inquiry that will lead to step B, which is now the demolition. Now, you carry down the demolition without conducting any inquiry. If the governor is led to believe that that place has lost its integrity, so how did they arrive at that?
Well, the commissioner did say that the consultants were employed in that particular quest.
No, for you to even engage consultants, the members of River State House of Assembly, they ought to know these are the actions being taken by the governor with respect to the presence of the River State House of Assembly. That did not happen.
No. So we know that all of this is not happening in a vacuum. It is happening within the context of politics. And we know that right now all is not well with the political climate in River State. You've talked about an investigation, a panel of inquiry that also have been set up. That did not happen. Or that maybe might still happen. We do not know. Well, what we do know is that lawmakers have been elected to sit. And it was seen that their place was burnt. There were questions as to whether or not they will be able to sit. But we've also seen divisions, even though some people say, well, 27 against 4 is not exactly a division. I do not know how you see that and how you think that this matters can now be resolved. Because if the place where they could have sat has now been torn down, how do you see them getting around this issue of sitting in the River State House of Assembly?
No, you say maybe they could have still conducted that investigation. By virtue of that demolition, that one is sealed. Nobody can conduct any investigation as to that fire incident. That one is gone and gone forever because you have destroyed the rest. Now, coming back to your question now, the governor has provided a latitude for other members to go and sit elsewhere. Because what the governor said, he's going to provide a place for them to sit. This, as we speak, Order 27, the issue for determination, the less contested is whether that 27 members have lost their seat. It does not lie in the mouth of the speaker, Dixon here, to determine the persons who have lost his seat because he cannot be a judge in his own case. Because before now, Dixon here was suspended by the other 27 lawmakers. So on which stead is he standing to suspend them? That's a question to be determined by court. And also, whether the other 4 members constituted a quorum, a valid quorum. So Section 2 of Section 96 of 1999 Constitution says, if these people could not form a quorum, you are John Senator. Then if you read Section 100, it says legislative, that is Section 100 of 1999 Constitution as amended. It says legislative powers of State House of Assembly is exercised by passage of bills, which should be presented to the governor for his assent. Unless a valid bill is passed, the word valid is there. Now, what makes a bill valid? That the House must be properly constituted for it to transact its business. Now, if the House is not validly constituted to transact its business, what it means is that this appropriation bill and other actions taken by Dixon here-led faction is invalid, null and void, unless and until a competent court pronounces as such. Because as we speak, the other members are claiming has been suspended. That suspension has not been overturned by court. Now, he also said, by reason of the defection by these 27 lawmakers, they've also lost their seat. He doesn't have that power. Then when you take it to what Falana was saying, that once you defect, it becomes a self-inflicted injury. No, these people are now saying, we defected. The fact of their defection is there. But they are giving reasons. Which is also, and if you read section, if you tie it to section 109 subsection 1G, it said provided, and that proviso.
Okay, let our colleagues in Lagos also win. Go ahead, guys.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. As Malcolm said earlier on, this is primarily a tussle for political power, and then it's been escalated to the judiciary and the rest. I know there's a concern as to whether or not the judiciary, and I'm talking about lawyers and judges, are not lending themselves as tools to perpetrate, this whole drama. And I know that people are watching and evaluating that. But so there are major parties in this tussle, right? So we have the governor, we have the Edison Ehie faction, 4 lawmakers, we have the Amewule faction, 27 lawmakers, and of course another name that has been mentioned time and again is former governor and minister of the FCT, Mr. Nyesom Wike. Well, the lawmakers have said, well, he's not involved, that they are doing this by themselves on their volition and the rest, but we understand, we all know the political situation in the state. From what you're saying, who is in the right here and who is in the wrong? Are you saying the governor and the Edison Ehie faction are in the wrong, and you've put out different reasons? Are you saying the Amewule faction, 27 lawmakers, are in the right? What exactly are you saying?
Yeah, thank you once again for your question. Yeah, let me take you back to what happened when National Assembly was invaded by SSS. I was on this studio. That interview was conducted by Agrin Giuliani. Today he's speaking for president. You can pull back the interview and watch it. It's not a question of lawyers being used to fester the crisis in River State. We cannot sit down and watch a hollow chamber desecrated for whatever reasons. Once we see, I'm here to discuss law and law qua law. It's not about sentiment. I'm not a politician. For now, I'm a practicing lawyer, and I am explaining these issues based on the constitutional provisions. It's not even a question of who is right or who is wrong. Now, if you take a look at it, one, there was a crisis in River State House of Assembly. The River State House of Assembly is considered for 32 members. 27 is disloyal to the governor, so to speak, while 4 or 5 is loyal to the governor. Now, this 4 group of persons, can they constitute a quorum? Can they form a quorum to transact the business of River State House of Assembly? That question must be answered. Now, this other 27 that said there is a division in our party, and that division has pitched us in one of the factions, and that led to our defection from PDP to APC. Now, that fact of division in the party has to be determined by court. And that is what we're saying. It's not automatic that once a person defects from a party to another party, he loses his seat. The court will look at the reasons being adduced. Is this reason enough to qualify it as a division in the party? If the court says no, that is the end of it. If the court says yes, that is the end of it. It's not about who is right or who is wrong. In this case, the River State House of Assembly, as led by Dixon here, cannot validly transact the business of River State House of Assembly.
Well, Mr. Anene, so what you're saying, and I think it's quite clear, pardon me, what you're saying is quite clear, and I think you meant to say Edison here. So you've said that the demolition should not have happened, so that was wrong. You were quite categorical about that. You've talked about the sitting of the 4 lawmakers, that should not have happened. So you said that essentially was wrong, and in fact, the presentation of the budget, they didn't form quorum. 4 is not the same as 11. You've been quite categorical about that. For the 27 lawmakers, what you said is essentially their decision should be tested in court. So you've not said that they were right or wrong. You're saying that court should decide whether there was indeed a division or not. That should be at the court's behest. So I think what you said is quite clear. But let's expand this conversation. We're being joined now by Mr. Maobuye Nangi-Obu, who's Secretary General of Joy Youth Council Worldwide, joins us virtually from Port Harcourt this morning. Thank you for joining us on Sunrise Daily. And I imagine you've been following the conversation, and we know primarily this is a political tussle. Sadly, this is what it is right now. But what is your interpretation? I imagine you followed the conversation and you've heard the legal practitioner, Mr. Anene's point of view. What is your own point of view about what's happening in River State now?
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'd like to put it this way, that how dreadful it will be for the right judge to begin to judge wrong. You know, lawyers sometimes interpret and misinterpret and also misinform people and also say stuff to confuse the populace, people like us that are not probably learned. Now, the point is, there's a court of competent jurisdiction in Port Harcourt just recently, and that court gave a verdict, you understand, that here, Edison Ogaranya is the speaker and his faction, put it that way, is the authentic House of Assembly members. Whether they are 1, they are 2, or they are 3, or they are 4, or they are 10, that's immaterial. But their number should now form the normal number. And by virtue of that judgment, that only can also be tested in another court of competent jurisdiction if that same court can also give another verdict to say that Edison is no more the speaker. And by virtue of that pronouncement, the competent speaker and the authentic speaker of River State House of Assembly sat with his people, and they also suspended, declared vacant the other 27. Now, let's also go back again. The reason why I started off by saying sometimes lawyers, it's not directed at the lawyer in your studio, but the point is, sometime last year or so in March, there was a judgment by another court somewhere in Abuja, where I think that was a case of Cross River, where about 24 lawmakers were suspended, in Cross River for defecting from either PDP to APC or APC to PDP. I've forgotten the party. That stood the ground. That was part of the legal tussle. So for me, as I'm not a lawyer, but I follow the law and I follow what the law has said. We cannot come here and begin to judge wrong. We cannot come here and begin to contradict ourselves, either as lawyers or as people who interpret the law. There is a court already, or a court judgment in Rivers State that have given authenticity to a speaker and his people. Those people would form the 100% that is needed. And by virtue of that, the INEC is directed or mandated to conduct election for 27 offices. And as Rivers people, we, especially Calabari people, we're going to call, see how we're going to mobilize our people to, now elect 5 different assembly members, 2 from Asaito local government, 2 from Akukuto local government, and 1 from Degema local government. The moves are already on ground. So I don't understand where, what people are talking about over there. The states should not be one man, from anywhere cannot hold Rivers State hostage. Now, let me just also clear a point. This may not be part of what you asked me. The word Asawana was valid, in 1999 when Peter Odili was made governor. He became governor through the verdict of Asawana. Asawana is, Ijaw people coming together to fight for, somebody. As at that time, Asawana was okay. In 2007, Asawana brought Chubike Rotimi Amechi. Then Nyesom Wike also benefited from Asawana. Asawana was good. In 2015, the former First Lady of Nigeria, that's Patience Jonathan, mobilized Asawana to make sure that Nyesom Wike becomes governor. Then Asawana did not irritate him. Today, Asawana is working for the real Asawana. Now Asawana is irritating people. The truth is that we must begin to speak truth to power and tell people the truth. We have a Rivers State House of Assembly. The Rivers State government has also given a position that the Rivers State House of Assembly has also, the former governor also indicated that the House of Assembly was not fit for purpose. Now today, there was, an arson. They burned down the place. And the state government decided that they want to rebuild the place. For me, I'm not going to go into that politics. If the place was good enough for people to see it. It's by the way.
Mr. My apologies for
I can hear you. Go ahead. Please. Go ahead.
At the end of the day, what is prevalent should be what the people want, or how the actions happening in River State pleases or works for the people. At the end of the day, it's just about good governance. Thankfully, you are quite well informed about the issues, and over the years you have followed it. But there are those much younger people who are not interested in what happened in 1999, who are interested in only what they can see here and now. And listening to conversations, listening to legal arguments, and listening to you, and listening to some of the things that a number of people are going to say, their confidence in governance, in the political class, continues to be troubled. How do we sustain our political structures, in your opinion, in a way that the younger generation, much younger than you, who will read these things and observe these things, will indeed have confidence in the system and not in the political players? Because at the end of the day, this is what this whole thing is about: confidence in our structures and our systems.
Okay, so quickly, if I need to provide solutions to that, it's very simple. We bequeath, insane political culture back to the younger generations and even generations. We don't have good political culture in Rivers State. What we run is political economy. We don't even have proper economy in Rivers State. Everything, if you want to buy Sachi water, it has to be either APC water or PDP water. This has always been the bane of our society that has become our albatross here in Rivers State. And that is why we don't develop, we don't grow. Now, the point is, I agree with you, does the current governor, does he even have what it takes to lead us aright? We're watching. But the point is that we cannot judge this young man if you don't allow him to breathe. You ran the state from your breast pocket for the past 8 years. Everything was all about you. You still want it to be all about you. No. The point is that no. What we want in Rivers State as young people, not even because we're Ijaws. The reason why I had to talk about Asawana, because Today, I represent Ijaw people. I represent Rivers Ijaw youth. I represent Ijaw people. Hello.
All right, gentlemen. We need to thank both of you for coming on. So this is clearly politics gone awry. And from the point of law, I even hear the other group argue that the court did not recognize him as speaker because it was done. So there's just different things out there. So you just wonder, sometimes you can't even catch up. But we have to thank both of you. Or was that the case in the first place?
No. I have to respond to some of these questions that are coming from everywhere.
Unfortunately, we're out of time.
The position, the judgment is referring to, it's not a judgment of court. It's a ruling, and that ruling will last for 7. It's an ex parte order, meaning that the other party were not given opportunity to be heard. That party were not heard as we speak, and the judgment has been carried out. Now, he did not cite any section of the law. If you read section 96, it says all 1/3 of all the members of Rivers State House of Assembly. It's not the intendment of the legislators or the draftsman of the 1999 Constitution, but that 4 persons will sit in a house of...
But the matter is not over.
No,
they're still going to go back.
It's not about the matter, but a lot of damage is being done to the system.
But
and that is what we are here to discuss.
They will still go back to court and test that probably.
No, first of all, the assembly complex, the hallowed chamber has been brought down. Yeah. Are you going to court to test that one? That place has been brought down.
We're out of time, Mr. Nene. We need to go, but not to worry. I'm sure we'll have other days to look at this matter expansively, probably. But I want to thank both of you for coming on. Emmanuel Anyene is a legal practitioner, and we also did have the pleasure of hosting Maboye Nangiobu, who is the Secretary General, Ijaw Youth Council. Thank you both for coming on this morning. So we will be back in just a moment. Don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the Sunrise Daily. As you've seen there, we're joined by the Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris Malaki. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on this morning.
My pleasure, Chamberlain.
So I assume now you've settled into the office.
Well, gradually.
It's been a while. But so what would you, tell us about your vision. What is it that you want to achieve in this ministry?
Thank you. Good morning to you and Nigerians. First and foremost, you will agree with me that trust in public communication has virtually broken down. And I feel, as Minister of Information and National Orientation, it is my duty to rebuild that trust. We know that even when Nigerians themselves elect their leaders, they don't seem to believe them. Yeah. Nobody seems to believe anybody that is in government or that is in power. And so, why is that so? Because people feel that the kind of communication that flows down from those in position of authority down to Nigerians is either not true or half true. And so what I'm trying to do is, first and foremost, rebuild that trust. People need to trust government communication. And once that trust is built, it is possible for Nigerians to believe once again in their government, to believe in the vision set out by their leaders, to believe in the prosperity that we all desire to have for Nigeria. This is my first mission. Second, because it is also Ministry of Information and National Orientation, it is absolutely important that we reorient Nigerians. Over the years, there's a gradual erosion of values of Nigerians about their country. Many years ago, Nigerians seemed to believe in their country. Everything about Nigeria, seemed to resonate with Nigerians. But over the years, it has, become almost, a commonplace to see that people don't believe in their own country. The Japa issue, all the issues of nationalism, value orientation have all broken down. And therefore, it is important for the Bola Tinubu administration to rebuild that. The Ministry of Information and National Orientation is set out to do just that. Rebuild trust in government communication, rebuild the trust of Nigerians about their own country, so that at least we can have a country that we all desire.
Well, some people say that trust is not something that you purchase off the shelf. It's something that is earned. I think the big question is how, since this is a thing that you have set out to do.
Well, I think that when you tell people the truth, when people come to know that those in positions of authority are telling them the absolute truth about what the position is, I think trust will come back. Of course, you can't purchase that, but you can earn it by telling people exactly as it is, and by telling it is bad, for example, when you say something and then you come back to know that what you have said is not true and you correct it. But it is worse when you know that what you have said is not true and then you continue to own it up. So my first mission is to rebuild that trust in government communication and for Nigerians to believe in themselves and in their leaders once again.
Well, government communication is not centralized in just the Ministry of Information. I mean, almost all the ministers are usually required to give an account of themselves, to communicate what their own vision is, as you're doing, and also, answer questions with regards to their own sectors.
Yeah.
You have very little control over how this communication happens. So when you talk about an orientation, are you going to be also impressing upon them the importance of truthful communication whenever it is they speak with Nigerians?
Yeah, we've already started doing that. I recall that there was a retreat for government ministers and permanent secretaries and heads of agencies that took place not long ago. At that retreat, I made it a point. Perhaps I was the only minister that was allowed to speak to my colleagues within a 10-minute period to tell them the value of truthful and honest communication. We're already beginning to tell them that, you have to say it as it is, truthfully, honestly. I think that it's not also a one-way traffic. It is also important that for those who are also consuming this information, also be truthful about their own perception of what is also being put out.
Yeah. So, time and again, people look from the outside and then even from the inside, where they see that talking about censorship now and political influence, where broadcasters are often faced with this censorship pressure from out there to either align, especially when it comes to political times. How do you plan to address this kind of perception?
Well, it's not something that is straight-jacketed. But what I can tell you is that it is important, first, for people to now know that this is the truth. This is where you are going. This is what this is. Now, of course, it's not something that you have absolute control over, like you have said, but it's also important that when you say something, you say it as truthfully and as honestly, with all sense of accountability. You put it out there. Let the person who is now consuming also, judge you from that standpoint. And that brings in the issue of orientation. You can't elect someone and then don't trust that person. But why is it that trust has broken down? This is the issue. If you say something is A, let Nigerians or let those that you are serving also come to believe that that is actually A. But if you say something and then they find out that what you have said is not the truth, of course they won't trust you. So it is important that this two-way traffic between those communicating and those consuming that communication are, aligned in the same direction.
So is that to say that this government will not be one that will put pressure on broadcasters or media houses to toe their line or align politically, as long as you just stick to the rules of the profession?
You can see that already happening. Who has been pressured? Which broadcast station has been pressured? Which newspaper house has been pressured? Nobody has been pressured to do anything. But again, it flows from the fact that you have to give them something that they believe is the truth. And that is why when you feel that you have made a mistake in providing that information, it is important to come back and say, look, wait a minute, what we have said is not true, or we have found out that it's not exactly as we have put it. Let's change this. So there's nobody that's going to be pressured. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a Democrat, as you know. He's a product of communication, so to say, because he has relied over the years in his democratic journey on the media to also shape it as it is. So why will he now come back and say, don't do it this way? Nobody has been pressured, and there's no intention whatsoever to do that. We believe that you allow people to say things the way they are, provided that what they are also saying is also absolutely true. Truthfulness and honesty and responsibility in government communication is two-way.
Let's talk about social media very quickly, because, I mean, intentions take on a new dimension. When you introduce social media to the mix, it's now become like a double-edged sword, you know, liberating many people, giving them prominence, giving them... But it's also broken monopolies. I mean, nobody has sole management of information, as it were. There are now those who, you know, deal strictly in peddling fake news. There are those who are using all of these other tools for negative reasons. And I'm sure it's something that also gives you concern. How do you intend, or what exactly is the policy that you're thinking about with regards to social media?
First of all, let me say that the social media issue and the issue of fake news is not just a Nigerian problem. It is a world problem. I've sat in conferences and seminars outside this country where the issue of fake news is also the dominant issue. We are dealing with it in our own way, but as it is, the United Nations, through UNESCO, is bringing out, some kind of, operating guidelines for the social media that all countries, hopefully, will adopt to check that. Much as we give freedom, for people to operate, to say what they want to say, it is also incumbent for them to know that that freedom comes with enormous responsibility. You don't just say you want freedom, you want press freedom. Yes, you have press freedom. Nigerian press is largely free. But what we are saying is that that freedom will also have to come with enormous responsibility. You cannot be allowed to say what you want to say and then be allowed at the same time to say what is not true. That cannot be freedom. That is responsibility.
What is going on with the transition from analog to digital broadcasting, the DSO?
You know that the DSO started many years ago, and it's unfortunate the situation we find ourselves. When I came in, I tried to find out what the issue of the DSO is, because, I looked at the books, and I saw that DSO has not achieved more than 15% of what it set out to achieve. That is unacceptable, considering the colossal amount of money that has been put out there. So we are trying to revisit that issue to make DSO work. DSO has to work. Countries that are not as endowed as this country have switched over. Why shouldn't we? Why would Nigeria continue to operate an analog platform? It's unacceptable. And I would tell Nigerians that within the next few years, DSO will work.
All right, let's bring in our colleagues from Lagos.
Honorable Minister, you do not sit in a very, very comfortable, should I say, a convenient position, especially when it comes to a territory where you have also operated over the years. And, when you visited the NBC, part of what you were reported to have said was that the regulator should work with the media so that they are not perceived to be punitive. Would you say that the regulator had hitherto been punitive? Or is that what you were saying?
Well, I didn't say that they were punitive. What I'm saying is that there is an absolute need and importance for all of us to work together, because this is an industry that we all belong to. It is important for the media and the regulator to come together so that we can at least fashion out something that works for our country. It is important that the regulator regulates within, common sense. You can't just say that, you want to regulate and then the intention is to gag or to stifle, freedom of expression. But at the same time, it is also the responsibility of the regulator to ensure that much as this freedom is being allowed to happen, responsibility, that freedom must also be upheld. If you give so much, you also expect so much. That's the only thing that we are saying. The regulator and those that are being regulated should work together in the interest of this industry so that Nigerians can have a better society that we all desire to have.
That's been a little, well, I don't know, depending on who is viewing it. Because in terms of content regulation, broadcasters have a way, professional broadcasters have a way of ensuring that they maintain the confines of professional practice, ethics, and all of that. But in a situation where regulations for broadcasters get in the way of balance between creativity, commercial interests, and regulatory compliance, it gives the broadcaster a lot more work to do, such that content along the line of local content, quota, decency, political broadcasting and advertising are being regulated by the regulator in a way that infringes on the viability of the organization, of the practice and professional ethics of the broadcasters themselves. It calls to question a lot of things. Do you see a need for an intervention at some higher level or some reconsideration by whoever is regulating whatever part of the media?
Well, you see, we are coming back to the same thing. What I try to say all the time is that the regulator has to do his job. It is important. I mean, even in your own house, if there's no regulation, there will be, breakdown of law and order. You wouldn't be allowed to say what you know is not true or what can incite people so that there will be conflict. That is not to say that government is trying to say this and don't say this. No. Whatever you want to say it responsibly, say with all honesty, and be accountable to that. So regulation is something that has to happen anywhere in the world. But that does not equate to gagging or stifling freedom of expression. I know that it is a difficult thing. Sometimes there's a very thin line between regulation and control. The administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not interested in that kind of control. What we're interested in is that people should be allowed to say what they want to say responsibly, so that your freedom does not also create a problem for the other person you want to address. That's the simple thing that we're trying to say. The
challenge here, Honorable Minister, is in the balance. Sometimes the regulation is a function of someone's subjective perception of a professional judgment. In that regard, then the media house has to work on eggshells in order not to offend the system, as well as remain as responsible as the Constitution authorizes it to do.
Yeah, we have always said that there's always this thin line between regulation and control. Now, it is important that whoever is regulating should regulate with responsibility. But it is equally important that whoever is also being allowed to air his views or to say as it is also says it with the utmost sense of responsibility. I think that the responsibility is not just that of the regulator, it is also for those who are regulated. That is why I said it is important for all of us to sit together so that we can find a common ground for all of us to operate. The basic thing, the most important thing is that nobody is trying to gag or control anybody. What we are simply saying is that, look, do your work, but do it responsibly so that your freedom does not also become a source of problem for the society. That's the only thing we are saying.
You began this conversation with trust, and messaging is quite important. Saying you intend to build trust. You talked about how the average citizen does not trust government, and you'll understand why. And being a practitioner for decades, a lot of people will say, just maybe this is going to be a litmus test for our industry as well. But let's talk about this statement you made that the president did not tell you to come and lie, and you have a covenant that you are going to always tell the truth to Nigerians. And I'd like you to speak to just one example of that. there's been a back and forth about whether or not this government has stopped paying subsidy. The NNPC had said that, well, subsidy has gone. We know that clearly the price of petrol is not what it ought to be. The World Bank, for example, says remove subsidy totally. So let's start from there. Is subsidy gone totally or not?
I think the subsidy is gone. The president has told Nigerians from day one, from the very day he was sworn in, that there won't be subsidy. It is because subsidy has gone, and that is why you have so much money available for government to do so many things. Of course, it's never enough. Subsidy is gone, and it is gone for good. Of course, there are instances where government needs to come in to see that things don't go so bad. That's the responsibility of government. Every rule will also have its own, self-adjusting mechanism, so to say. But subsidy, I can assure Nigerians, the subsidy is gone. If you look at the monies accrued to the federation account and the kind of money that the states are receiving and what that money is being put to, you know that everybody desired for subsidy to go. Now, what do we do with that subsidy, I think, is the next question. If subsidy is gone, how do Nigerians get that benefit? I think that is the subject of discussion. We need to move to scrutinize that so that Nigerians will have the benefit of the subsidy that has been taken away.
So that's to say, right, so that's to say that the World Bank doesn't have the full picture if it says that subsidy should go entirely or we're not getting the true story of things. But one thing that excites me, and I must say this, Honorable Minister, is this values charter which you've talked about, and there's a committee, I imagine, that is in place. But I remember that the previous administration had this change begins with me thing that, it introduced, and a lot of Nigerians did not receive it well. And they were saying, well, change should begin with government and not with Nigerians. So what is the plan with this Nigeria's values charter? We've talked about how we need to have values, set of values as a people. So it's sort of a social contract between the country and its citizens. So what exactly is the plan? And will this change begin with Nigerians or the government itself?
Okay, let me say this, that the National Citizens Value Charter that we talked about is it's not just mere slogan. The difference this time around is that we are reviewing, if you will, what the social contract is existing between Nigerians and their country. There is so much that Nigerians are expecting from their country. There's also so much that the citizens, are also expecting from their leaders. And then the country itself expects you to behave or to also align yourself in a particular direction. For example, if you say you want to behave decently, what is that decency about? And that is why we talked about the need for us to convene a conference for the first time, so that in a very long time, so that Nigerians can talk about the issue of citizenship. Who is a Nigerian? How do you expect a Nigerian to behave? What does the Nigerian expect from his country? What does the country also expect from a Nigerian? If you have a child, for example, in your house that is growing up, what are you going to teach that child? How do you expect that child to, to grow up behaving? How do Nigerians also expect that child to behave maybe when he becomes an adult? It's a two-way thing. It's a social contract that we all have. Nigerians expect, something from their country, and the country should also expect something from Nigeria. So it's a two-way traffic. It's beyond the slogan. We're trying to say that, look, let's have a national conversation. We've been talking about, for example, a conference on security, on the economy. We've had national conferences in the past talking about how to restructure this country, how to deal with each other politically. Have we sat down to also discuss this concept of citizenship, this charter, this relationship between the Nigerian and his country? What does the Nigerian citizen expect from his country? What does also Nigeria expect of its citizens? So early in the coming year, we hope that we will convene that the president himself will lead that. We'll have a robust national discourse talking about how Nigeria and Nigerians relate with each other so that we can have something that we say, okay, this is now the social contract that we have with our country and the country also has with its citizens. It's beyond slogan. I think this is for real, and it is important for Nigerians to at least put that trust there, believe in that concept. Let's come together, discuss it, and see how we can move as a nation. We cannot continue to operate in an environment where there is this almost a total erosion of our values. When something is said, Nigerians are the first to say, is this true? Why is this true? Well, are you sure that they are saying the right thing? The only time you find ourselves, coming together and believing ourselves,
sports.
A situation when you have, for example, sports, the Super Eagles is playing, everybody wants to be a Nigerian. But beyond that, values have really eroded, and we need to restore that. We can't afford to continue to go the way we are going.
Because nowadays it's heartbreak with the Super Eagles. But I want to quickly follow up, excuse me, on the issue of social media, which you had raised earlier. You talked about how the UNESCO is coming up with guidelines.
Yeah.
Are you saying that we're waiting for the guidelines of UNESCO before we come up with our own policies?
No, already. You see that Nigeria has already begun that process. There is already something before the National Assembly.
The process of what?
The process of looking at the social media in its entirety. Now, I'm careful to say a process, because any word you utter will mean that you want to say you want to gag, or you want to control, or you want to
say
that already the media space is
social media regulation.
Yeah, regulation has to come in a way that does not, and I want you to mark that does not take away that freedom from those who are operating. I'm very careful to say that I'm an advocate of press freedom. Freedom has to happen, but we keep saying that freedom has to come with enormous responsibility.
Right. So you say there's something already before the National Assembly?
Oh yes, there is. There's something before the National Assembly, and everybody is a contributor to that.
What is it? A bill?
Yeah, there has been a bill that has been in the last administration and is still there. And Nigerians are expected to debate that so that it will not just a government thing. It is something that Nigerians, the operators, everybody have to jointly own.
Okay. Just before I wind down, Honorable Minister, before this new leadership of NBC came, you spoke about broadcast license, that it should do something about reduction of broadcast license. Could you talk about that? And are you talking to the customs or government about taxing media houses that are bringing in broadcast equipment because it impacts on their overall costs of operations?
Well, let me begin with the license. I'm an advocate of reduction in the license fee. If, for example, you want to set up a television station and you are asked to pay huge sums of money, at some point 500 million naira. Of course, that was further reviewed to about 250 million. But I keep saying that you don't have to take the money from the person who wants to invest in a business before he even makes anything out of that business. Why don't you make the licensing fee low so that the person can come in, create an enabling environment for him to make so much money so that both of you can grow together. As he's making the money, you can then find a way of participating in that process so that Nigeria can be better for it. I am not an advocate of saying because you want to set up a media organization, a television station, for example, instead of you to worry about equipment, worry about staffing, worry about content, you are worrying about the fee that you pay to government to set up the center. I think that is wrong. We are working on that, and Nigerians will expect something different.
Taxing broadcast equipment.
Well, only yesterday at the Federal Executive Council, we had a conversation around waivers and taxes and all that. And some of these taxes are already in the law. there is not much you can do about it.
Yeah.
Some of these waivers are also in the law. So much as you want to tax, you need to tax in a way and shape that will not impact in the operation of that business. Broadcast equipment are very critical equipment. The information broadcasting is, goes out to educate, to entertain, and to also even propagate government programs and projects. So you need them to have this coming, the equipment coming, so that they can do their jobs. So if there are ways and means that the Prime Minister of Information and National Rotation, for example, will contribute towards ensuring that people operating within this environment, find it easy to operate, I think we'll do that.
Absolutely, because there's no, there's palliatives given to different people. Industries too, like broadcasting houses, media houses, they have to have at least to ensure that they stay in the business and not just kick them out. But there's this thing that bothers us too when our colleagues, we go for assignments. The way, security agencies treat journalists at events. They're almost always brutalizing them, harassing them. And then maybe this one you might need to speak to the president about it. When his security agencies, they jam almost all the networks in that place. So it's difficult for you to transmit your signals. So are you likely to look into these matters?
Yeah, I think that being the practitioner myself, I think it is wrong for security agencies to stop or to stay in the way of media people doing their job. It's absolutely wrong. We have the right, the media owners or the media operators or the media practitioners have the right to report government activities. By the way, if for example, government is organizing an event and no media covers it, what's the value of that? How do they come to know about that? So it is important for us as government to look at that, to see that the media practitioners are allowed to do their job. Now, the issue of jamming facilities at events, we talk to security agencies about that. It is important to do, but you also know that it is important also for us to have a secure environment.
Absolutely.
Not just protecting the president or political leaders, but even protecting journalists themselves. It's important that security operatives also look at the situation in a way that will allow both the media people and the people they are reporting to have a safe environment to operate in.
But sometimes it just looks as if they're not even willing to have that conversation. Because, the media definitely will know there has to be a country before there's media. Absolutely. So most times they're on the same page about doing some of these jobs. So media needs to see that they're willing to even listen. Because if that's the first thing they see, then there could be solutions about it.
I think this is the change that you will expect. We are talking every time. It's not fair for me to come on the screen and say, this is what we are saying and discussing every time. But what I can tell you is that the president is giving that listening ear. We talk to him all the time, and he listens. And each time we tell him what we think should happen within this environment, he listens and is very willing to cooperate and to allow things to go the way they are. Some of these mentalities are actually coming from the military era, and gradually we are solving that. We need a little time. It will go.
All right, Minister, I'm sure that, I don't know if ministers look forward to this MOU that was signed with the president, because he says
measuring their KPIs,
perform.
Right?
Yeah.
Right, he said they have to perform. Are you looking forward to that?
Oh, yes. Why shouldn't you perform? You were given a job to perform. And it's not just for the president or government to measure you. There is this app that is also being developed that the Office of the Advisor on Policy is also working on, that will enable you, Chamberlain and Mopi and everybody to also measure by himself. I think that you've been given an assignment. It is important that you are measured. It's important that people see you to be doing that assignment. You ship in, you ship in, or you ship out. It's as simple as that. On this job, you were asked to perform ABC. If you're not seen to be performing that, what are you doing there? I think it's the right thing, but that's not to say that there's one, the way sometimes I read the commentaries, as if there's one policeman or policewoman sitting somewhere to, no, that's not how it works. It's a whole gamut of operational model that that is there, and every ministry has already been given that template, so you know what is expected of you based on what you yourself have said you want to do and what government also expects you to do. They didn't just come out to say, look, it's not an examination, it's a collaboration, it's an engagement that will lead to better result for Nigerians.
So I know you've said that, look, you're there, you have an obligation to tell truth to Nigerians.
Yeah.
So what is it that, beyond that you want to, at the end of the day, because time flies, before you know what's happening, it's 4 years or 8 years if the government wins again and you're still there, what would you like to be your key policy that you like to be remembered for this industry?
One, to say I will want to return trust to government communication. One, it is also important that we bring in regulation that will help media operators to do their job and for Nigerians to also hold them accountable. And then, if you look at the public broadcast facilities that we have, for example, the NTA, the FRC, and the Voice of Nigeria, and News Agency of Nigeria, rely on technology to do their jobs. We are looking at that, ensuring that they get the tools that they need to operate. Nowadays, content is key. How do they develop those contents? What do Nigerians expect, for example, from the public
40 minutes.
If you look at NTA, for example, and you look at channels, there's a huge difference when you look at the screen. We need to clean up that screen. It's a public media organization. We also help private owners, like channels like all of you and all of us, to see that we have one of the best media atmosphere and tools to operate in this country.
I'm very, very happy about the fact that you are taking up the issue of citizenship. Yeah. And you say that the conference is going to come up in January or
yes,
so.
Yeah.
Is it in January?
Early in the new year, yes. Most likely before the end of January or maybe early February, depending on how we arrange it with the presidency. But he is already in support of that. He's expecting that. He's driving it. In fact, we want the president to drive it so that it will be seen that it is coming from the #1 citizen, and all of us will also key in.
Because this issue of national cohesion is also a matter of grave importance. And people think that how information is managed, and as you've also spoken about, the place of orientation in all of this is also very important. How are you looking at the issue of national cohesion, and how do you intend to address it, especially after elections that were really, really, really fractious?
Yeah, it's really a very serious thing to look into. The issue of national unity, national cohesion is absolutely important for everybody. And like Chamberlain said here earlier, we need to have a country before we can even have whatever it is. So if we don't come together, I think our diversity should be a source of strength. We need to come together. I agree that, after the elections, Nigerians have become so divided along so many lines. It is the hope and the desire of this government and through the Ministry of Information and National Orientation to see that Nigerians come together once again. It is absolutely important for all of us. I mean, divisions along ethnic, religious, political lines, differences exist. They will always be there. But how you manage them and steer everyone towards the same direction is critical, and we hope to do that. I know it's a tall order. The divisions are sometimes very deep, but nothing is impossible. We need to continue to do that, to build that trust. But the key thing is, I think government has a responsibility here, and that's where the president is leading that. Do what Nigerians expect. Government is trying to do that. And then government is also telling Nigerians, give us a chance. Let's join hands. Let's come together. Irrespective of our differences, be it political, whatever. Let's join hands to see that we steer this country towards the unity that our founding fathers have laid out. If you go back in history, I mean, there have always been those divisions, but the different regions had very healthy competition. So why is it now? And I said at some point, you keep talking about Sir Ahmadu Bello, you keep talking about Azikiwe, you keep talking about Awolowo. Now, how many Awolowos have you reproduced? How many Sir Ahmadu Bello Sardaunas have we reproduced? How many Azikiwes have we reproduced? If we have reproduced them enough, why would we be talking about this? There will be healthy competition. There's nothing wrong with healthy competition among different states or different regions. But let that competition be that will drive us towards the kind of prosperity that we all desire and that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is always talking about.
All right, Honorable Minister, we need to go to a quick break, but we'll be back and wrap this up in just a moment. Don't go away.
So let's continue with our conversation with the Honorable Minister for Information and National Orientation, Mr. Mohammed Idris Malagi, joining us from our Abuja studio. Thank you for your time and, of course, for the discussion. It's been quite enlightening. For a lot of Nigerians right now, the major issue for them is their livelihood. The daily is 104 million Nigerians now in poverty. That's another 14 million Nigerians who have become poor in 2023. So, I mean, you forgive Nigerians if they don't trust government, because successive governments come and promise them all sorts of things to lift people out of poverty. Sadly, people are being thrown into poverty. Is this government, how touched is this government by the plight of these Nigerians? And what information do you have for them about this renewed hope? How soon is that hope coming? So at least they can hold on to something, as much as we talk about government policies, the ethics and values as a nation. But people need to eat, they need to survive this period. What information do you have, Honorable Minister?
Well, thank you. And I think that if anybody, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has always said and has never shied away from the fact that he is aware that Nigerians are suffering. And he said that severally. At one instance, he said, it is like a woman who is undergoing labor. The pain is so much there, but if with some patience and perseverance, the baby will be delivered, and then there will be relief and joy will now come. In the immediate term, you know that on October 1, the president said he was going to give a wage award of 25,000, for example. Labour came up after that to say, look, we don't want 25,000. We want something higher than that. I was part of that negotiation with Labour. We had a robust conversation with them, and we went back to the president, and the president said, well, let's look at the books, and the numbers were worked out, and additional 10,000 naira was added to that to bring it to 35,000 naira. That's number one. Number two, the president also said that he's going to give 25,000 naira to 15 million poorest of the poor families. That is also ongoing. You recall that government gave some money to states to enable them to cushion in the short run some of the hardship that they are going through. The government also provided funds for assorted fertilizers to be distributed across states, because the thinking of the federal government is that the suffering is not just at the center, it is in the state. That's where the people reside. So it is important that whatever you do, you work with the state governors to achieve that. And it's happy to note that some of the state governors are also doing so much to do that, to cushion that effect. also recall that because of the removal of fuel subsidy and because the cost of transportation will have to go up as a result of that, government said, let us now have compressed natural gas, CNG buses that has already been rolled out. I'm happy to say that even some of the states are already moving in that direction. Borno State, Ogun State are also taking the lead among states to do that. So there are interim measures that government has put in place. But of course, this is not something that we say we rely on in the long run. Why government is working on more sustainable, more robust, and more deep engagement in that direction, these immediate reliefs have come to Nigerians. Of course, it's not enough. Government is not pretending that what it is doing is enough, but it's one step at a time. You start with that, with those little steps, and then you move towards a more robust intervention and enabling environment for people to now come out of that hardship. Coming back to your question, does the government feel that Nigerians are experiencing some hardship? Yes. Government never pretended about that. The president himself has owned up to that. But is government doing something also to alleviate that? Yes. Government is doing so much to alleviate that. Every day, the policies that government are putting in place, the CNG, the fixing the forex regime, government, president traveling around the country to make sure that there are investments and coming to the country so that we stabilize the economy for the benefit of all of us in the long run. So yes, there are hardships, but there are also measures being taken to alleviate that. These hardships are not intended, but of course they are a direct consequence of the removal of fuel subsidy that we have had. But Nigerians are going to be better for it in the long run.
Well, Honorable Minister, you began by talking about trust, and definitely every Nigerian would want to believe what you're saying, because if we don't have strong enough institutions to trust, then we don't have any hope for good governance. But, when Nigerians are asked to trust, asked to do certain things, and they still see the political class taking certain actions that are not particularly in consonance with the texts or, the vocal, the things that we hear government says, it draws a lot of questions. So help us marry, for instance, the issue of national orientation in the light of actions that people might perceive are kind of questionable. One example is the appointment of people into the resident electoral commissioners who are highly sympathetic, some of them card-carrying members of political parties, which is clearly against the law. Another one is something that the political crisis that is happening in Rivers State. These issues tend to help make people further distrust government, be it at the federal or at the state level. In the light of national orientation, how do people receive these issues, particularly these instances that have been cited?
Well, you talked about first the appointment of resident electoral commissioners. I know that a government's desire is to have credible people in critical places like the election management body. I'm not aware of, for example, somebody who can be said to be not trustworthy that has been appointed as a resident electoral commissioner. Maybe some have been perceived to have some form of inclination one way or the other. But I think that if the president or government sees somebody to be outrightly partisan in that regard, government will not accept that. Your second point about the issue of rivers, I've been asked this question only yesterday at the State House after the Federal Executive Council meeting. And I said the rivers issue is a political issue coming out of Rivers State. what has government done, the federal government, for example, done? Did government say that the people in rivers should have crises among themselves? I mean, was it engineered by the federal government? I'm yet to see that. It is easy to speculate that because some of the actors are seen to be people who are associated with the government at the center, and there is this tendency to think that the federal government, is involved in the crisis in rivers. Federal government cannot be involved in the crisis in Rivers State. It is not only in Rivers State that you have political crisis. That is a state with, that has an opposing political party. In Ondo State, for example, the president has had to intervene, to wage into this kind of crisis, to bring people together, to reduce that friction, reduce those tensions that exist between them, and they are members of the same political party. The fact that it is happening in Rivers does not mean that the federal government is the one that is orchestrating a political crisis to come out. I have not found that evidence to say that it is the federal government that is engineering the crisis in Rivers State.
All right, it's a good place to anchor. We've been speaking with Mohammed Idris Malagi, Minister of Information and National Orientation. Thank you very much indeed for your time here today, sir.
Thank you, my pleasure.
All right, let's read some comments just before we go. This one comes from George about Rivers politics. He says, one of the major reasons why the masses have not enjoyed the dividends of democracy in Nigeria is simply because our politicians only play politics of bitterness and are never there to make better choices. I honestly feel sorry for the citizens of Rivers State who are the real victims of all this crisis going on there.
Well, philosopher SBS sends this tweet, or is it an email now? He says, the bomb River State House of Assembly is a crime scene. The act of demolishing the House of Assembly is tampering with a crime scene. Whoever is involved in the demolition has committed a crime. Well, that's the view of this philosopher here.
We'll take a look at Dixon Ecker's message. I'm not upbeat about the World Bank projection of 11 trillion revenue for Nigeria by 2025 from subsidy removal. This is because the removal of subsidy has caused so many problems for the country, and most people are struggling to survive, dealing with hyperinflation, and, the mail goes on and on. Thank you very much, Dixon, for that one.
Well, Professor Munokade, we got your mail as well, but we're completely out of time. Thank you so much for sending in those messages this morning. And that's the show today. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, try to rest, right? I'm Kayode Okikelu. Goodbye.
It's almost Friday. Just make the most you can of it. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.